How's it going, everyone? This is George, and today we are going to be starting a mini series of reviews this week leading up to Black Panther Wakanda Forever. I'm going to be reviewing Captain America Civil War, and we're also going to be talking about Black Panther later this week before Black Panther Wakanda Forever comes out. Basically, the reason I'm covering Civil War isn't just because I find this to be one of the more interesting MCU films, but this is also our introduction to T'Challa, played by Chadwick Bosman. So, with Captain America Civil War, this was directed by the Russo brothers, who previously directed Captain America the Winter Soldier. And in this film, this was the beginning of Phase 3. We see that the Avengers are starting to be held accountable for some of the things that happened in the past, what happened in New York, in Washington, in Sokovia. And when a mission goes wrong at the beginning of this film, the Sokovia Accords are introduced, and the Avengers either need to sign them or retire. And if they don't retire, they're going to get arrested. So this film, while it's also a Captain America film, you can also consider it an Avengers 2.5 film because the supporting cast is mostly Avengers with the exception of Hulk and Thor. But Chris Evans as Steve Rogers is still the main character, and it's also continuing the plot line of Captain America the Winter Soldier with Bucky, played by Sebastian Stan, still on the run, not just for the events of what happened in Winter Soldier, but also because he's framed for the death of T'Challa's father, King T'Chaka. So this film also stars Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow, and many of our other favorite heroes. And while this is also the introduction of T'Challa, once again played by Chadwick Boseman, as I mentioned, this also introduces Spider-Man to the MCU. This is Tom Holland's first outing as Spider-Man. So this is a movie that really has a lot of characters, is introducing two characters, one of which plays a bigger role in the film, is a central figure to this plot. So how did the Russo brothers pull this off? Basically, kind of a similar way that we see them pull it off in Infinity War. We see some characters are the main focal points of the film, and others are a minor focal point in this film. Each character has their own significant role, whether it's Steve Rogers, Bucky Barnes, and Tony Stark being the main figures, or or the minor figures being Hawkeye, one guy slash Clint Barton, played by Jeremy Renner, um, Ant Man slash Scott Lang, played by Paul Rudd, and Spider Man. Every character has their own role in this film, and I think it's played off very well. And basically, I want to get into Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa because this is the new character that's introduced in the film that plays a big role in this film. And right from the beginning, he is phenomenal in this role. And he really is one of the more serious figures of the MCU, and he captures that seriousness so well. His action is well choreographed. In fact, all the action in this film is well done. Winter Soldier. Before this film came out, I thought Winter Soldier had the best action of the MCU, and the Russo brothers are continuing that trend in this film. And I know a lot of people, they sometimes get annoyed that the airport scene wasn't as serious as it could have been. The action is still incredible in that scene. And I like the airport fighting scene because it really shows how divided the Avengers really are at this point, and it shows like each character having their own moments, whether it's Ant-Man turning big, whether it's Spider-Man taking on Steve Rogers and helping Iron Man and War Machine take on Ant-Man. Every character has a great moment in this fight scene, but also you also see that it does have consequences because a lot of Team Captain America is getting arrested. We see that Rhodey, played by Don Cheadle, gets severely hurt in this film. Like this film does have big consequences, even though like later on those consequences kind of like aren't as serious. Like obviously She-Hulk kind of said the Sokovia Accords are no more. But at the time, at that point of the MCU, like we were really seeing the Avengers are being held accountable. We're seeing this team getting divided. And this is like a couple years before Infinity War happens, and we see what happens when that team is divided when Infinity War comes around the corner in 2 years. But also the trust, because you're seeing like prior to this, like Tony Stark and Steve Rogers, well, yeah, they have their differences. They're becoming good friends, and you see the betrayal captured perfectly on Tony Stark's face. Robert Downey Jr. does a phenomenal job in this film. Like I feel like this was his best performance as like Tony Stark in like what was considered a while. Like he was still phenomenal in the other films like Iron Man 3 and Avengers Age of Ultron, but it kind of felt like this was his best performance as Tony Stark at this point in the MCU. And like Tony Stark realizing that not only did like Steve Rogers' best friend kill his parents, but also the fact that Steve knew about it and never told him. So let's get into some of the other performances of this film. So this was Tom Holland's introduction to Spider-Man, and that was another thing that they had that the Russo brothers in Marvel had to work on. By the way, incorporating Spider-Man into this film, because I think whether it was like right around the time filming was beginning or like in the middle of filming, the Sony Marvel deal finally happened that would bring Spider-Man into the MCU, but they would have to recast because they could not use Andrew Garfield anymore, and they couldn't incorporate the Andrew Garfield universe into the MCU. So they had to recast with a younger actor. And again, there was uncertainty as to would they be able to use Spider-Man or not. I think there were rumors that at one point, if they weren't able to use Spider-Man, they were going to just put Ant-Man on Team Iron Man. Like that was a rumor that was floating around. But nope, they were able to get Spider-Man, and Tom Holland does such a great job in this role, basically presenting himself as Spider-Man. We don't have a retelling of the origin story, but like you see that this kid is dirt poor, he's a dumpster diver, and is in need of a big upgrade. And his fight scenes in the airport were incredible. To me, that was some of the best action Spider-Man, his version of Spider-Man did before No Way Home eventually came around the corner when the action like really ups in his Spider-Man movies. But yeah, all the performances were great. Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow is great. You also get William Hurt returning as Thunderbolt Ross in this film, and to see him again because we haven't seen him since The Incredible Hulk, which was the second movie in the MCU back in 2008. That was great to see as well. Uh, Daniel Bruhl, sorry if I mispronounced that last name, as Zemo the villain. He is not the most powerful villain in the MCU, but he is a villain that I feel like is very underrated, and he accomplishes what he's out to get, which is breaking the Avengers apart. And I feel like he's very underrated as a villain, and he does such a great job in his performance and the motivations. And that's another thing I want to get into the debate of the Sokovia Accords, Team Iron Man or Team Captain America. For me, I've never really been either one because watching the film many times over the past 6 years, like each side really has good points, but also points that are wrong. Like you understand why Tony Stark and his side feel the way that they feel. But on the other hand, you also understand why Steve Rogers and his side feel the way that they do. So it's like one of those scenarios where you feel like nobody's wrong, but nobody's 100% right either. Like they have valid concerns, but there's also some points where like you got to admit the other side makes a better point than you do. So I like how that's also handled as well. The score very emotional, especially at the end when Tony Stark and Steve Rogers are fighting. To me, this is one of those like moments where it kind of breaks your heart because you're seeing like the official breakup of the Avengers happening right here. Because prior to it, Tony Stark realizes that Steve Rogers was right and he's coming to help him, but then he sees what happens to his parents, and these two are fighting it out, and you're really seeing the breakup and end of their friendship. But overall, I do love Captain America: Civil War. It's not my favorite MCU movie or my favorite Russo brothers Marvel movie. Like for a while I did prefer this over Winter Soldier, but while how much I've enjoyed this film has not declined, it's more so how much more I've grown to appreciate Winter Soldier over the past 6 years. But I still love this movie. I love the introduction of Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa. I think T'Challa was phenomenal. I loved his motivations. I loved his fight sequences. He gives a phenomenal performance, and I love that what they were going for with T'Challa, even though it was going in a different with a different director in Black Panther with Ryan Coogler. His characterization did not change, and I look forward to talking about Black Panther later this week. But yes, his introduction I thought was incredible. How these characters play out works really well. I love the introduction of Spider-Man into the MCU. I feel like this was the best we've seen of Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark in quite a while in the MCU at this point in time. And overall, I'm gonna give Captain America: Civil War an A plus. As far as like the Russo brother MCU movies go, Infinity War's number one, Winter Soldier, which I hope to review one day on this channel, is number two, Endgame number three. So yeah, this is number four, but still, it's a phenomenal movie, and it just shows how well the Russo brothers do with their MCU movies. They clearly make some of the best MCU movies. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Captain America: Civil War? Did you love it? Did you hate it? And who was your favorite hero in this film? Let me know in the comments down below. And I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe. Alright, if you haven't, please share this with someone that loves the MCU. And I'll see you guys real soon. Like I said, the next review is going to be the 2018 Black Panther film, directed by Ryan Coogler. And I can't wait to talk about that film. And then this weekend, I'll be checking out Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And I can't wait to review that one as well. In the meantime, take care, everyone.